Gosh, I love Cheryl. One of the best that's ever played the game. So I think her energy, that's what I love about her. People that have done so much for the game, people that I really look up to and idolize and appreciate everything that they've done. And
they were calling her the female Michael Jordan. Her name synonymous with women's basketball for almost a decade. How good was Cheryl Miller that she's still considered one of the greatest to ever play the game, and she never even played professionally. Inducted into every Hall of Fame she qualified for, Cheryl Miller is the greatest basketball player robbed of the biggest basketball dream. Because while you may recognize the name and you can Google some dazzling highlights, the world would be denied the magnificent scene that would be Cheryl Miller's professional basketball career when she was just 22. Cheryl Miller was absolutely phenomenal, a high-energy power forward with a flamboyant personality that wanted to win everything. You can find Cheryl Miller's name everywhere along the women's basketball timeline, specifically through its most impressive jump into its popularity with sports fans. She's given credit for popularizing women's basketball and elevating it to an even higher level. Women's college basketball was just becoming a real force when she won her first NCAA championship as a freshman. The NCAA tournament itself was just 1 year old. Women's basketball in the Olympics was still fairly new when she led the U.S. national team to its first gold medal in the heart of California. She was a part of a decade of NBA coverage as an analyst and subtly keeping that ember burning for a women's professional league, having gained the respect and admiration of players like Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson. And although we didn't get to see her play in the WNBA, she was the first coach for the Phoenix Mercury and a pretty big face and ambassador for the WNBA and women's basketball as a whole. We take for granted today that women's basketball is somewhat readily available to us, not because of the internet, but because of the WNBA. In the 70s and 80s, the highest mountain to climb in women's basketball was in college, at least in the USA. It was like the big show. It was as professional as it was going to get. So that means high school players are even more important to scout. And no one was looked at more than Cheryl Miller. She was incredible on the court, fast, high IQ, and so much effort on defense. She had a nice touch around the rim, scoring and rebounding, and she always wanted to win. Just the perfect slurry of a basketball player when you're mixing up greatness. Now, you can't get to her college career by skipping her 105-point game.
I remember when, as a high school player, I had my best game. Getting in the car and ready to kind of gloat a little bit.
He goes, I started. I said, get out of here, man, that is awesome.
And I'm really kind of ready to give it to Cheryl a little bit. And Cheryl and my dad are in the front, and they're kind of smirking and laughing. And I'm like, yeah, we did this, and we took it to him. And
he said I had 40. And I go, oh my gosh, Reggie, that's awesome.
Hey, by the way, how did you do tonight?
I said, well, I had a big game. He goes, what, 60?
Cheryl kind of looks at my dad, and my dad kind of looks at Cheryl. She's like, oh, she had 105. I was like, huh?
It's a well-known story, and yes, it was just high school, but 105 points on any level is very crazy. So yes, the other team was trash, but that means she scored almost every point, almost every possession. I mean, she had to have a 90% shooting percentage that night, along with breaking multiple national records in that single game.
The game broke 8 national and state records, and the winning team's best player got 105 points.
And season stat line, she was the most sought-after player in the country. Now, she did play for Riverside High School, located in Southern California, so she was very familiar with the Southern California energy. But she had the best schools in the country recruiting her. She really could have went anywhere. The reigning champions were the Louisiana Tech Lady Texters, and really all the teams were trying to get ready to go up against them to build a team that could take down Kim Mulkey and the Texters. And the USC Women of Troy knew they only needed the right piece to take them down. The Texters were a solid team. They were big and disciplined. They were well coached and had some smart players. But USC was ready for the challenge. They played a really fast offense and looked to Cheryl Miller to get them over the hump. Personally recruited by the McGee twins, Pam and Paula, Dropping names like Cynthia Cooper, Miller was sold on the idea and the team was formed. An all-star studded cast, looking back in hindsight. She fit right into the system, a run and gun team that wants to move fast and disrupt their opponents. She was perfect, averaging over 2 blocks per game and 10 rebounds. Not even the main ball handler, but averaging 20 points a game. She could get downhill like a guard, she had nice footwork in the paint, and she just played with so much energy, just something we had never seen before with her intensity and focus. Captivating to watch, that's who you had your eyes on during the games. Her freshman year at USC had to be like a dream. Her team went on a tear, just destroying the other teams with their pace and skill. The McGee twins helped her hold down the paint, and Cynthia Cooper went to work as one of their starting guards. And they played determined, knowing they could get to the championship and take on the Texers. Going up against a young Mulkey would not be easy. The Texers had a huge fan base, and the championship game was the only televised game back then. The biggest game in women's basketball at the time, so their fans and so many more got to see Cheryl Miller for the first time ball out. The first half went to the Texters, as they had been there before, and the USC squad had a lot of nerves to work out. But they came ready in the second half. Switching to a full court press, they got to show off how they made it there, picking passes and making quick lay-ins, just running the Texters down, chipping away at the deficit. And Cheryl Miller was right in the middle of it all, diving on loose balls, getting the ball to or from the McGee twins, absolutely losing it when Coop took a charge super late in the game. Now, Miller did miss her last free throw to put the game out of reach, but a young Mulkey missed at the buzzer and the game went to the freshman Cheryl Miller, who would be named Most Outstanding Player for the tournament. Finishing her freshman year at USC, Cheryl Miller was a U.S. household name. She won her first gold medal that same year in 1983, participating in the Pan American Games in Venezuela. The following year would give those women of Troy very little trouble. The team would go on another championship run, having been there before and working out the kinks in year one. Cheryl Miller earned another Most Outstanding Player award, but nothing would beat that freshman year run. The 1984 Olympics were held in Los Angeles, California, so she got to play this game right in her backyard. To be honest, they didn't face a lot of trouble. This was mostly the Trojans, but then you got to throw in Kim Mulkey from the Texters and other NCAA players that were ready to represent the country. The team actually went to Taiwan for pre-Olympic practice, and they beat every single team they played, winning by almost 50 points per game. And Cheryl Miller led the team in scoring, rebounding, and steals. So they pretty much knew it was a lot, they just had to put the work in. The USA women's national team would win the gold in an impressive fashion, just leagues ahead of the other teams, giving Cheryl Miller and the national team global exposure, winning the first gold medal the U.S. national team would earn, which started the gold medal winning streak for the USA. The McGee twins would go on to graduate, and Cynthia Cooper and Cheryl Miller would go on to attempt another championship, but fall short. Finishing her time at USC, she graduated with a degree in chemistry, while slowly watching her huge basketball world get really small. Women's professional basketball was not an option in the USA, so anyone wanting to play professionally had to go overseas. In the USA, there were only men's pro leagues and teams like the Harlem Globetrotters that went around performing basketball. Miller would watch her superstar teammates take the overseas route. Cynthia Cooper played in Italy after college, the McGee twins followed soon after, and intense basketball fans were waiting to see her next move. Objectively the best player on that championship team, where would she go? Because she was quietly getting offers from men's leagues, but ultimately would have decided to go overseas, had it not been for that fateful day. Hearts broken and a dream crushed, Cheryl Miller tore her ACL in a pickup game at USC, an injury that is recoverable today but ended this GOAT's career. Devastated, Cheryl Miller's personality and resilience showed through as she stayed close to the game she loved by working as an analyst and sideline reporter. She covered several Olympic games, college games for ABC, and even some Little League games. We got to see her interview and interact with some of the best players, and the world got to see how they respected her and knew they were in the presence of a true basketball savant. She would also dip her toes into coaching over this time, dedicating herself even further to the game, even if she couldn't lace them up. At USC, no less. She started as an assistant coach, and she excelled in this position, able to get so much out of her players and coach with the same energy and personality she played with, which really ended up being the perfect decision, because right around the corner was the first women's professional basketball league with staying power, the WNBA. She watched as her USC championship teammates were found and selected for this new league, and was just as happy to receive her call to coach the Phoenix Mercury. The WNBA as a whole was a dream come true for Cheryl Miller. and not being able to play was probably a disappointment, but she got to put her stamp on the league regardless, as one of the most in-your-face coaches, the best dressed, and giving the league all the credibility she came with. She coached the Mercury for 4 years, leading them to the finals once, only losing out to the dynasty that will become the Houston Comets. Today we can find Cheryl Miller courtside at a USC game or WNBA games as an active participant, coaching at the 2024 WNBA All-Star Game for the rookies and Olympic snubs. And we're reminded of how much she is loved by the basketball world and inspired most, if not all, of the best basketball players we know today. In 1995, she was enshrined in the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. In 1999, she was inducted into the first class for the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. And in 2010, she was inducted into the FIBA Hall of Fame for her success in international play. USC retired her number 31 in 1986. Cheryl Miller changed women's basketball in the most similar way Caitlin Clark is changing it with a modern spin. She brought attention to the league that needed more eyes. She had so much talent she was able to keep the eyes she earned. She helped stir the rivalry between the Texters and Women of Troy and gave the people what they paid for. Just like attendance is increasing and TV viewership is becoming more available, Miller got the same treatment. More games in the Final Four started being televised, helping pave the way for the likes of Texas Tech and UConn. Even after she couldn't play, she made sure to hold the door open for all that could and wanted to. She helped put women's basketball in modern times by the lives she touched and people she inspired. Cheryl Miller is just a marvelous human being, and while we mourn what was taken, we are so grateful for the time we had watching her play basketball.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, players.